not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
All right, yeah, well, we're here with a day after sort of fallout state of the Timberwolves within the series episode here. It's going to be a pie chart by design here. Judd's going to give us a pie chart of blame for why and how the Timberwolves are currently down 3-1 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But Dex, there are still games left, maybe multiple games left, but for sure another game left in this series. And our friends, WolvesRealtor.com and Heather, are here to help make Game 5 a little more exciting, potentially.
That's right, another watch party for Game 5 at the Savage Tap. There will be food trucks, okay? There'll be a full bar. There'll be games. There'll be drink specials for each quarter. You can go hang out with our friend Heather to watch Game 5. And you can get all these details, too, by the way, at WolvesRealtor.com to reserve your seat and get a free raffle ticket. And while you're there, you know, as you're watching those Wolves, you're watching Terrence Shannon Jr., which I know both them, Heather and Darren, are big fans of. You can also figure out what you want to do with your next home. You want to figure out how to buy or sell a house. It's a complicated process. Heather can walk you through that as well. So go to WolvesRealtor.com to reserve your seat and for all of those real estate needs.
All right.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
If you missed our, 50-minute, whatever it was, almost an hour last night from the arena post-game recap, we gave you our immediate emotionally charged thoughts after the Wolves lost just a heartbreaker. Every time they got right up against a 9-point lead, down to 3, down to 2, it felt like 15 different times in that game, Oklahoma City just had another dagger, and then the Wolves would sit up again like the Undertaker, and here they come, and then another haymaker. The shot making by Oklahoma City, the Wolves shot making was excellent throughout the night. But Oklahoma City just had another gear and another notch that the Timberwolves do not have, and it was on display last night. But Judd's going to give us a pie chart of blame for how and why the Wolves are down 3-1 in this series.
All right. We'll start at the bottom as we always do. We will then distribute 6 pieces of pie. 6 pieces of pie for why the Wolves are down 3-0 or 3-1. Starting with 5%. Very small chunk goes to a very large man, Rudy Gobert, 5%. As is usually the case, the metrics like him. Like he is not having, by his measures, he is certainly not a disaster, okay? But I will give you something that's not totally a surprise, but it gets him 5%. His scoring averages from the Lakers to the Warriors to this series have gone 9.8, 9.6, 6.8. So he's down to 6.8 points per game. Probably more importantly, his rebounding averages have gone from 8.2 against the Lakers, actually spiked up to 9.4 against Golden State. Obviously, two smaller teams, didn't play bigs much. And now he's at 7.0. Well, OKC throws way more size at you. But nonetheless, he gets 5%, which I think is a very fair, small chunk.
Yeah, the defensive rebounding has been like, dude, you're out there to do 2 or 3 things. And I would say none of them are necessarily offensive. Like, the expectation is that if he can add something offensive, if you can catch a pass in the lane and not have it be stripped,
right? There's
all those frustrating things, but
right.
In the absence of that, if he is redirecting offense out of the paint, making it harder for Oklahoma City and whoever they're playing to make shots at the rim, it's the never minds. Like, you're out there for those never minds to just throw chaos into the opposing team's offense, and he's largely been great at that. But the other thing is clean the glass. And it didn't bite the Wolves as much in terms of like actual second chance points, because the Wolves actually have more second chance points than the Thunder did in that game. But the 19 offensive rebounds the Thunder collected helped fill the gap. Like, if you look at this, Dex had a stat last night. Mm-hmm. The Wolves are the only team in NBA history to lose a playoff game where they shot like 50% from the field, 40+%, whatever it was, 42% from 3, and there might have been another number in there. It was like 55-0 or something, and now it's 55-1. Because So despite having a really efficient, great shot-making night across the board, even without Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle playing well, it was the bench guys, it was Jaden McDaniels, to turn the ball over 23 times and give up 19 offensive rebounds helped Oklahoma City close the math gap.
Correct.
And Rudy Gobert, it's been an issue throughout the regular season. His rebounding rates have gone down. They kind of bounced back after he sat for like 3 weeks with the injury. But again, in the playoffs, like in this series, his defensive rebound rate is only 15%. And to put that into context, his career rate is 30%. He grabs 30% of available defensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. So he's just not cleaning the glass and ending these possessions like he's supposed to. It's absolutely a fair 5% to put Rudy Gobert in this pie chart.
Yeah, last night, 7 offensive rebounds, 2 on defense. So 5% goes to Gobert. 10% goes to Chris Finch. Now we could get into what he's done right and wrong strategically, but I'm going to just give you an overview thing that I think it lies partially on at least Finch's plate, potentially Conley's as well. But one of the things that has defined the Wolves' losses in this series, or at least 2 of the games, turnovers, okay? Oklahoma City forces you to turn over the ball if you don't have somebody who's really good at protecting it. A point guard. Mike Conley is that guy. He's 37. He can only play, it's clearly been decided, and they're probably not wrong, so much, okay? But I hearken back to last year's draft when Tim Connelly traded up and the Wolves took Rob Dillingham, or they traded, it was a draft and trade, with the 8th overall pick. 8th overall pick in the draft. And yet, he cannot play. He's not playing. He's been hurt at times, but he also is not, he just didn't play.
Yeah.
And if this was the, I don't know, if this was the 29th pick in the first round of the draft, it might be like, oh, okay, I sort of get it. But you went up to the 8th pick in the draft. You made a substantial trade. And by the way, good for you to get a guy who could handle the ball, but you have now decided he can't play. And Mike Conley can only play so much. And when Mike Conley is not on the floor, the Wolves' inefficiency with being able to have somebody who can handle the ball in this series especially is a recipe for disaster. So 10% on your first round pick, a top 10 pick, being unable to participate in the series, and your options behind Conley, for the most part, are all bad as far as who can protect the basketball and set up an offense without it turning into what looks like a hand grenade being passed around the court at times.
Yeah. Yeah, the Dillingham thing is super fascinating because on one hand, the Wolves' 2 first-round picks were drafted into an organization that just went to the Western Conference Finals without them. So it's like they traded Cat, 1 rotation guy, for 2 rotation guys in Julius Randle and DiVincenzo. So they added NBA, like in theory, high-level NBA playoff caliber players or rotation guys. DiVincenzo has not been that, and I don't want to spoil the rest of your pie chart here. And Randle has been terrible in 2 of these games. So I get, like, in theory, why those guys would have a hard time cracking the rotation, but it just went too far at times in the regular season, and then to the point where you didn't feel comfortable putting Terrence Shannon Jr. in some obvious situations where he belonged. My biggest criticism of Chris Finch, and I don't think Finchy, I'm glad that it's only 10% because I don't think Finchy deserves a ton of heat for this series necessarily. A lot of fans kind of divert to just fire Finchy. Finchy's an idiot. Mm-hmm. But where he absolutely does deserve criticism is Terrence Shannon Jr. only playing a smattering of minutes in these last 2 games. There are many reasons why these last 2 games have been far more favorable for the Timberwolves than the first 2 games of the series where they were just kind of run out of the gym in Oklahoma City. But Terrence Shannon Jr. is one of those reasons. He's been excellent in the smattering of minutes that he's been giving, just like he was. I said this last night. Oklahoma City is tied for the 5th best regular season record in the history of the NBA. They lost only 14 games all season. 2 of those losses were to the Timberwolves, and in those games, Terrence Shannon Jr. was awesome. He helped drive the 24-point comeback victory. It's regular season. I get it. You're just kind of passing through these cities, so you can't put everything on those regular season games, especially kind of a fluky 24-point comeback. But to be, for instance, last night, DiVincenzo gets 28 minutes. And I know he poured in a bunch of threes. But again, he was a team worst, like -8 or -7. The Wolves are -41 when DiVincenzo is on the court in these playoffs. And they are plus whatever it is, 75 or something, or plus 80. Maybe more than that, actually, when he's not on the court. I think there's reason to criticize Finch for not expanding the rotation to include Terrence Shannon Jr., and to just be giving Terrence Shannon Jr. 18, 20, 25 minutes in these games against Oklahoma City. I think it's a fair criticism.
On the point guard, though, so you dispatched Golden State in 5 games. OKC went 7 against Denver. Here's my question. So you have all this time to watch film and prepare. At what point in time did you either panic or delude yourself into thinking that when Conley was not playing, that you would be fine against that defense?
But what is your solution in terms? Like, the point guard thing seems like more of a roster construction issue than a Finch issue. Are you suggesting that Dillingham should have been playing in these last few games?
No, but I'm saying it is a clear cut. Like you were going into, when Conley does not play with the way that OKC plays, you are going into this series with a hand tied behind your back. And my question is, did you just accept that because there's no way around it? Why didn't you, like, this is why you
What's
needed,
the solution to that problem, though?
The solution would have been to either decide that Dillingham could play and get him a long time ago in the regular season, get him time, and or find, when it became very, very clear early in the season that Donte DiVincenzo could not really run the point because he just can't. If you expected to go this far, the way that OKC played was setting yourself up for what we're seeing now. That's my issue with the construction, but my bigger problem is Dillingham's a top 10 pick, so you're just punting on a top 10 pick. I have a big problem with that being a season-long philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it would have been great if Dillingham would have emerged as the secondary initiator of offense and the backup point guard that maybe became the starting point guard. That would have been incredible. So what you're saying is blame Chris Finch 10% pie chart for that not panning out.
For never
the
developing
way that,
a guy. Yeah.
And I don't know, like, he's 19 or 20 years old, and it might just be that he was not ever destined to be that guy as a 20-year-old on this team. And I think the criticism really would be back in November, December, January, before he got hurt, because the injury kind of threw a wrench into it.
Right.
Would you have been more willing to sacrifice some, because they were leaking oil with their main guys, and they were struggling to get above 500 until February.
Yeah.
Would you have been willing to sacrifice even more games and be a play-in team? Because more Dillingham between November and April would have equaled almost certainly more losses. And instead of a 6 seed, now you're a 9 seed or you're an 8 seed, and you're in the play-in.
But you could have got to the trade deadline then and realized that the problem is Mike Conley can't play more than Mike is playing. And so when you're playing a team, like if you thought, you know what, I think that this team still has a good shot at the Western Conference Finals, which I'm guessing internally they did. I'm saying you had to give Dillingham the chance to fail to then go get a replacement of sorts, or a guy. They just have nobody now who can handle this.
Yeah, I feel like it's more of a roster construction thing than maybe a Finch thing, but let's keep going on the pie chart here and see
The Rock knows how you
what
feel
the
about
bigger
pie.
slices are.
All right, 15% goes to the Can't Man. That's right, Skip Bayless, the Can't Man. Ant gets 15%. Now, let me first of all say, very disappointed, more so in the fact that Ant, who I thought was brilliant in Game 3, especially defensively, he was fantastic. he didn't bring the same defensive mindset last night, which like I tweeted this. I tweeted in game 3, you're not going to win again by 42 points, but you need to play like this in every game left. Like, this is how you have to play. There's no, like, it's a long season. I don't care at this point in time. But more specifically, also had only 13 shots last night. And if that sounds familiar, it's because he also had 13 shots in game 1. He was a combined 2 for 16 from 3 in games 2 and 4. He is a minus 48 in the 3 defeats and has turned the ball over 13 times. I still think he's done some good things. I still don't think it's fair to lay this all at his feet, but he definitely gets a 15% chunk because he's their star. And again, my biggest starting point was last night, you've got to bring exactly what you brought in game 3. And he was talking about, well, we didn't bring that. It's like, no, you had to. You didn't. Defensively, you had to. That's disappointing.
Yeah, it's he's the face of the franchise. He is the center of the wheel, and he's the best player on the team. He's one of the best players in the league. And so even though there's a bunch of things that have happened in the series that don't necessarily involve him, his performance needs to be better. If the Wolves want to move beyond the Western Conference Finals, if they want to beat a team like Oklahoma City, who's one of the historically I think they're actually the best net rating team in NBA regular season history. I don't know, maybe Declan can look that up for us. But it's like you're not playing like a 56-win pretty good team here. You're playing one of the great regular season teams in NBA history that might be opening up a window where they are just dominating the NBA for like the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's going to, when teams that win 68 games in the regular season don't win a championship, and there's only been, I think, one team that's won that many games or more and didn't win a championship, and it was the Golden State Warriors, who won the most games in NBA history about 10 years ago, 73-win Warriors. It required a legendary LeBron James run. Like, you've never seen games like this before, LeBron James type run, to knock that team off. And instead of getting something close to that, not that that should be the expectation for Anthony Edwards, 45 and 15 and 9 or whatever, his performance has regressed. So it is fair to say, to this point, down 3-1, he has been outplayed by SGA this year and last year by Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. I think it's also fair to say he should go to school and learn from some of those guys. All 3 of those guys have an elite mid-range offensive bag where the defenses are clamping down, they're blitzing you off pick and roll, they're not allowing you to just get open threes off screens or whatever when you're on ball. They're packing the paint and they're packing the gap so that you're not able to just freely get to the rim the way that you want to, maybe on a Thursday night in the regular season. Okay, what's the next thing down the list? Well, for Anthony Edwards, those are pretty much the 2 main things he relies on offensively. Freight train getting to the rim and or step back threes or threes off screens, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that mid-range game that you saw an uptick in last year, he was like a 40% mid-range shooter last year. It was the best mid-range performance he had at any point in his career. And he went to the gym all summer long, worked on it. It has regressed. He was a 34% mid-range guy this year. SGA is over 50%. So when the Wolves are saying, hey, no, we're going to make it hard outside the arc for you. We're going to pack the paint so you can't just come in and get your layups and flail. And he says, okay, cool. I'll just settle for these little 15-footers fading away a little bit, unblockable shots. Yep. And I'm going to cash those all night long. So I think going to school on that mid-range game can be a really, really big-time club for him going forward. But for some perspective here, compared to some of his contemporaries, and when I say contemporaries, I mean players at the top of the NBA who have become champions the last handful of years, Anthony Edwards is still kind of ahead of schedule. So back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances, age 22 and 23. Steph Curry didn't reach a conference finals until he was 26, and then he won the title that year. That was the first time he had gone that far, and they won the title. First MVP at age 26. Giannis got to his first conference finals at 24, so 2 years after Ant. First MVP at 24, and then first title at 26. Jokic, first conference finals at 24. first MVP at 25, first title at 27. And then LeBron's kind of an unfair comparison because he's one of the 2 or 3 greatest players of all time. Some people say greatest player of all time. He didn't make his second conference finals until he was 24. Now, he went to the finals at age 22, kind of a weak Eastern Conference, but first MVP at 24. LeBron, first title at 27. He had to join a super team to make it happen. So again, Anthony Edwards needs to get better at certain things. Mid-range game, maybe even conditioning. It's better than it was last year, but he does get sort of a little bit bogged down in some of these games. Ball handling, solving these defenses. But he is doing things at 22, 23 that even the best players of this generation in the NBA have not done. So let's criticize, but let's hold off on like these grandiose can't man labels that the Skip Baylesses are putting out into the universe.
All right, 15% to Ant. 20%, Slice 4. Slice 4 and 5 will both be 20%. 20% Naz Reid. He is 3 for 17 on threes, which is his forte in the series. And he has shot fewer in each game as his confidence wanes. 7 in game 1, 5 in game 2, 3 in game 3, 2 last night. In the 3 defeats, he is shooting 30% from the field. And his 11 points that he scored in game 4 was actually a series high. It has been a dud from Naz Reid. 20% of the blame goes to him.
If it's $30 million a year, yay or nay?
Think I lean nay.
You know what? I
As a
told you
bench
guys
guy,
last
I
night.
think I lean nay.
How much is Tim Conley going to be influenced by this series? Like this, you can't. And as we talked about, they didn't dismiss Cat's performance against the Mavs last year in the Western Conference Finals. Like if you're building a team around Ant, right, which you clearly are, I think the question is how much do you say, Naz, you've done some great stuff, you've been fantastic, but we need to improve there.
Yeah, he's a really, really high-end offensive talent who is streaky and can disappear for stretches. I just don't know, man. Like, I think he's going to command the type of money that requires you to devote more playing time and just more attention to.
Sure.
It's he hasn't done himself any favors in the last 2 months. As now, before the game, Naz Reid and Tim Conley were talking on the court. I don't know if you saw that. They were
Tim
having
said,
a
"I'm
little
gonna
private conversation.
Sign and trade you."
Listen, Naz, this is the end.
And
If you
Naz
don't
got
put up
bummed out and
35
said, "I'm gonna have a
points
bad night."
So it's the Naz Reid thing. And by the way, Terrence Shannon Jr. getting kind of a Naz Reid ovation when he checks into games.
Fans love him.
Last 2 nights.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'd forget about Naz. It would be Terrence Shannon Jr. beach towel night. We'd
Upside
get
down,
bobbleheads.
yeah, right.
It'd be no problem at all. We would just move right on.
Before you get to the last slices here of your pie chart of blame, Judd, the Timberwolves were barbecued last night by the clutch shooting of the Oklahoma City Thunder. That performance by the Thunder presented by Safeside Barbecue.
Yeah, well, first of all, just to be clear here, Wolves fans didn't enjoy that, but Wolves fans, I can tell you right now, what you are going to enjoy, as Phil just said, Safeside Barbecue, the best barbecue food truck in the West Metro. Absolutely fantastic. Check it out right there. The brisket, cut to order, 100% wood-fired smoking, juicy, savory, tender meat. No electric smokers or ovens are used. Everything is homemade. The bread is made to order right there for your sandwiches. Find them at SafesideBBQ.com and on Facebook for where the truck is going to be next. Also, if you go and find their food truck, you do not have to go into the establishment that you're at. That's right. So you can go get your food, take it home, and enjoy it there. Safeside Barbecue, the best food truck in the West Metro. In this case, you'll love the barbecue, unlike what OKC did to the Wolves last night.
And you'll love the HVAC systems at MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
Oh, talk to me about it, man. It's getting hot again. I know it's been nice outside of late. And no, if you are watching this, it is not winter now. That is gone. But I do want to talk to you about the AC system in your house because the temperatures are going to rise. We certainly got a taste of that a couple of weeks ago. And when those temperatures rise, guess what? You turn on the AC. Does it work? Is it efficient? If it's not, I want you to check in with my friends at MSP which you can do 651-615-4292, 651-615-4292, or call MSP.com. Call MSP.com. Take it from Sports Dad. You want to make sure that air conditioning is working on day one of summer, and MSP, Plumbing, Heating, and Air, are how you're going to do that.
All right, Judd
The Rock
is
knows how you feel about pie.
4 slices into his down 3-1 pie chart of blame.
2 left. Nas Reid, 20%, is sharing a 20% slice of said pie with Donte DiVincenzo. Where do we start? So it's somewhat misleading. In the last 2 games, Donte has gotten his 3-point shot on track. I think he was 2 for 2 in the blowout on Saturday. He was 5 for 8 last night. But he is a series worst when it comes to plus minus rating for both teams. He is a minus 7.5. And let's go back to the first 2 games from 3-point land, where he shot 28%. In the 3 losses, his plus minus is a minus 54. Donte DiVincenzo, in short, I know he shot well last night, but in short, I think we can summarize this by saying he has not been a net positive really throughout the playoffs. And in the first 2 games of the series, shooting 28% from 3 was an absolute killer, because while both games became one-sided for OKC, that both occurred times in the third quarter, and Donte actually had a chance. The Wolves had a very good chance to stay in those games, and turnovers in game 1 sabotaged them, but Donte DiVincenzo did not help matters at all.
Yeah, and just doing some math on the fly here, he also has the 4th most turnovers of anyone on either team in the series, despite playing the 12th most minutes of anyone on either team in the series. Wow. So the turnover to minutes played ratio is way out of whack for him. I think Donte DiVincenzo leads the league in driving into the paint with your head down and then jumping in the air with no plan of what you're going to do next. That happened like 3 times last night where, all right, here he goes. He's going into the lane and he's jumping in the air. And, oh, no, he's not going to shoot it because there's a shot blocker right there, but he doesn't know who he's passing it to. And, oh, Rudy is standing there. Let me rifle a pass at Rudy, and the ball bounces off his forehead, and now we're back in transition.
Yep.
So, man, there was a 2 or 3 month stretch in the regular season where Donte looked like the as-advertised version that we saw at his peak in New York. He was a key piece to a Warriors team for a minute there, and even the Bucks. He's a title, right, with the Bucks.
Yes.
And I thought he was going to be the best asset in that trade. Turns out regular season Julius Randle and first 2 rounds of the playoffs, Julius Randle was the best asset in that trade. DiVincenzo at $10 million a year is still a really, really good asset. Like, he's a good rotation player. But he has been, and I was wrong about him. And I thought his impact was going to be much higher on this team, regular season and postseason. And he has been unplayable at times in the postseason. So a fitting 20% for sure, despite knocking down some threes, some big shots last night for the first time.
We expected the playoff, Donte, that the Knicks got last spring, and it's come nowhere close. And unfortunately, it's come since day 1, too. Because it's not like he tore it up like Julius did against the Lakers and Warriors. Yeah. It's just been MIA. All right, our last slice, 30% reserved for playoff Julius. Yeah, picked a hell of a time to reemerge, my good friend. A hell of a time. Absolutely spectacular against the Lakers and Warriors. I'll just read here what I wrote, because I did our stats department early this morning, hard at work. I really appreciate it. They always get me these great notes. Yeah. They always get me these fantastic notes. That's why they get paid a lot. His scoring average has gone from 18.7 points in the season to 15.8 in the series. He leads the Wolves with 3.5 turnovers per game in the 4 games. All 14 of his turnovers have come in the Wolves' 3 losses, including 5 in game 1, where he was spectacular in the first quarter and then dropped off after that, and 5 in game 4. He played a series low 28 minutes last night, which is interesting because he got benched in the fourth quarter of game 2 and actually played more In games 2 and 4, he was a combined 3 of 18. And then I want to give you a quote from him post-game last night. Julius said, "I think it was just a lot of me just spectating. I've got to figure out a way to get myself involved in actions." Dude, you've been playing all year long. You were great in the first 2 rounds. You were great in the last, 2+ months of the season. And you're spectating against OKC. I'm confused by that. I am not confused by the fact he deserves 30% for all of the reasons I mentioned in the above stats package I read.
Yeah. And you know how, I don't know if any of us are big like crypto guys, but you know how you see or even like the stock market, right? Where you got usually it's like a graph going up to the right, but then if you zoom in the short terms, it can be like, this is going up to the right for a month and then boom, it dives back down, right? If you were on like I was, whoa, the Timberwolves absolutely fleeced the Knicks in this trade. If that was the stock that you bought, you were riding that take the last 2 or 3 months by look at this. What a fleecing. Yeah, Carl's been playing okay for the Knicks, but wow. And look at Julius in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs while Cat is at 4 points through 3 quarters of game 3 and the Knicks are down by 20. And then from that point forward, Cat, 20-point fourth quarter, game 3, dominates the Pacers, saves the Knicks season, one of the best fourth quarter performances of his entire career. Yep. And 24 hours later, Julius Randle scores 5 points in kind of a must-win game for the Timberwolves. Boom, that stock is crashing. I still think it was a great trade for the Timberwolves. I don't think they get back to the same spot if they run it back with like Kyle Anderson and Karl Anthony Towns. But Julius Randle is guilty of the same thing we criticized Cat for last year, which is disappearing in the Western Conference Finals. We savaged Cat for it. And Julius Randle has had the 2 worst offensive games of his playoff career in this series. So really bad time for playoff Julius to show up and not really know how to get himself involved in the offense. So another fair slice. So Judd winds up with
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
30% Julius Randle, 20% Donte DiVincenzo, 20% Naz Reid, 15% to Anthony Edwards, or the Can't Man, as Skip Bayless is calling him. 10% to Chris Finch, 5% to Rudy Gobert.
Yeah,
his pie chart.
I think that's it. I don't think I missed a player or a coach I think I got them all.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some. Yeah,
like there's a few strays, but I feel like those are the main cast of characters.
Yeah, I think you did a pretty good job here. This is pretty good. So, all right, dudes. Well, we'll be back at it tomorrow night for a Game 5 post-game reaction live podcast, Flagrant Howls, on the Score North YouTube channel. Click that like button and the subscribe button. And if you haven't already, maybe you're new to the show, you found us during the postseason, Apple, Spotify, give us a 5-star rating and a positive review. For the sports dad, Judd, for Phil, that's our often mustached producer, Declan. Also for Kyle Teige, who's been a huge part of this show throughout this playoff stretch in the last 2 or 3 years. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See you guys.